Seems you're alive. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. Whether live or later, we are so glad to see you again. Um, Let me quickly check if you're live across platforms because I obviously do not want people to miss out. So if you can hear me clearly, maybe you can put in the comments section so I can know that yes, at least that channel is working fine. And yes, it's always good to see people who have been community members who have been joining regularly. So it's always good to see familiar faces. So if you're there, do let me know. I would love to see you on the chat section. I'm quickly checking across platforms also. Yes, it seems you are perfectly live. So thank you all for being here. I'm Mudit. I'm one of the founding members of AI Planet. We have been known as DeFi so far, and we recently changed our name. The idea was to make it something which is more relatable to everyone, and but with a higher ambition. We want to create an ecosystem that would educate and build AI for all, and solve some of the meaningful problems using artificial intelligence. And the goal behind AI Planet is to enable that. These sessions that we do is basically where we get to interact with some of the change makers in the industry who are trying to create an impact with the help of data science and are extremely helpful and are willing to come forward and guide the community through these sessions. So this is where we are. Every Saturday we start off with these sessions, and this Saturday we have Jacky, who is on AI Planner for the first time. But he's a very important guest because he comes with a very in-depth experience in data science. He's talking about something which is very special, which is how to manage teams. Like he gave it a very nice title, which said "Humans Beyond the Loop: Managing AI Teams." So it's something that he's very passionate about. And while I can briefly introduce what's the context is, I think it will be best if he does it himself. So I'll leave it up to him. For those of you who do not know so far, Jacky is currently the director of data science at Remerge GmbH, which is a German company, a German AdTech company to be precise. And he's basically delivering this talk where he'll be talking about various aspects of how to manage team members around data science, what has changed over the years, and what are some of the experiences that he has seen. And probably try to share that knowledge. If you have any questions, then you can put them in the comment section, and like every time we'll be taking a note of it and we'll try to pick them up towards the end for sure. So without any further ado, let me loop in Jacky. So yeah, hi Jacky.
Hi, Mudit. Thank you. Thank you for the very nice introduction. I'm really happy to be on this live session by AI Planet. I I'm always happy to share what we learn from our work to other aspiring data scientists, or especially people who's interested in managing data science team, because that's what I take the painful lesson. I was there's a long and painful path to this, and somehow get some success, which I would like to share with more people. Um, yep. So I think the sharing screen is on already, right?
Yes. So I'll
Okay.
probably go to the backstage and over to you. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Yep. So today, the title of presentation is "Human Beyond the Loop," which I think is a term I create. We have human in the loop for machine learning training, um, but what I'm concerned is, well, in the loop, the loop means the data science process. What's happening beyond the loop, and how does it affect our output? Well, first is just a little bit about myself. I'm currently in Berlin. It's winter and cold, and I originally come from Hong Kong. Now working in an AdTech company called Remerge. We are focusing on mobile advertisement. In Remerge, I have been worked for 6 years, and starting from the only data scientist, hiring 2 people every year, so now grow to a 10 people team. Um, and my personal passion in working, that is the one thing I learned during these years, is in order to become the leader or manager, one of the passion you have is to bring the best out of people, to grow the people. And besides my own team, I also want this to make the impact to the overall data science community, because one thing I observe is there should be more good manager around to help like all these talented data scientists to have their best self like contributed to their work. Um, okay, yeah. So just one like my own preference in presentation is like I usually get used to discussions. So if you have questions, please write to Mudit. Like in if it's a suitable, he will let me know. Then I can like simply jump into that. Like because I would say this discussion can be even more important than the original planned like slides. Yep. So I would like to start the presentation with my favorite quote. The favorite quote, well, a lot of people think this is from Einstein. Like when I first come across this quote, like not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Someone told me it's from Einstein. I'm so enlightened that, oh, it's really cool. Although like afterwards do a little bit like checking, it seems that it's not actually from him, but like from William Bruce Cameron. Um, this is like almost one of the principal guidance in shaping how I work. Like then I would like start my presentation from this quote. Yeah, from that quote, it's obvious that things we can have two groups of things that can be counted and things that counts. And a very nice representation of that is there's a very infamous Venn diagram. Yep, so you can see that I have a group like the blue circle that is things that can be counted. Um, I think like data, what we usually work with is things can be counted. On the other end, there are like the red circle, there's things that counts, which means that that's important. That can be some mysterious stuff like business strategy, people relation, or like some magical spells, something like that. Um, and typically, what most data scientists think that they are doing is this intersection, something that can be counted and also counts. We call it actionable insights, or like in machine learning, we think we create a machine learning model that is game changing, help the company to success. But like across the years, what I somehow really feel is most data scientists, including me myself, especially in the early days, are doing all sorts of data related projects, many of them with ill-defined goals that actually never counts. So like, which means we spend a lot of our effort on, well, actually all the efforts on things that can be counted, and more than half of them are not counts. Then like during my journey and like moving from a single data scientist to a leadership role, I feel more and more important that what a great data scientist or a data science leader should do is these things that counts, no matter is countable or not. Like it can be something that cannot be counted. That's totally fine. On another end, even things that can be counted, like some data, but if it's not counts, then like you simply like drop them. That would be the wiser decision. Again, like so I start again because there's different interpretation of this Venn diagram. So first is like just like I said, there's the loop, the data science process. Like there's the very famous CRIPS data science process that you can see that is it guides how us work with data. Um, so that the circle of all the things that can be counted. And then besides beyond the loop, what I is the title of this presentation, beyond the loop, there are a lot of things. One of the particular topic is a human. human beyond the loop. And there are also other things which I somehow will mention that later. Um, but like in this presentation, what I want to focus is this human beyond the loop. Okay, yep. So back to the purpose of this talk. Actually, like as I said, we gonna do what counts. So what counts for this talk? Why I am doing this talk? Um, this is a very important question for if I'm true to myself, because as I said, as a data science leader, you're gonna do what counts. So the purpose of this talk is well, at the beginning, I think maybe it makes me more famous. People find me for more talks, but like well, that may or may not happen. But I was not think that is what is the most important impact. The bigger impact that I want to do is to share like my experience to help all these like the people in this data science community to become the better manager or better leader, such that like we can all leverage the whole data science community to have a happier, more successful, fulfilling life. Yep. So how this shift the talk is like, if I'm going to make myself famous, there's one approach. If I'm going to actually share my experience, there's another approach, because I don't need a lot of like gimmicky thing. What I think is the most useful thing is just to share my own stories, like of my path, how I become the manager, and what are the challenges, blockers, happiness, and failures during in this path. Um, and since these are real story of myself, of course, I'm not going to disclose some particular information of individual people, but since they are all real stories, so do feel free to ask about the details. Most likely, I can share more if you want. So, the episode one is about when I first becomes a data science manager. Um, when I first joined Remerge, I was like the first data scientist there, reporting to the head of product. So he has some background in data science as well. So we together study what are the problem. We propose some solution to work on that. Um, then very soon, like move on, like don't like become my is not my direct manager anymore, and I report to CTO, and then we start hiring, and I this is the first time I become the data science manager. I hired two junior data scientists. This is one thing very interesting. At those back then 5 or 6 years ago, most data scientists are junior, and self-made data scientists. There are not yet people graduated from data science degree or master, something like that. Um, so most data scientists by that time is self-learning, so high motivation. Same do my two like junior reports. But then when we start working on projects, still like they are much more junior, and it takes a really long time to onboard and then to work on the problems. And given that I'm already like spending a year on those problems, so I get familiar, and eventually, like not eventually, I think that's quite typical, that their output doesn't seem like can catch up the expectation, both from me and from the CTO. Um, that's from my perspective. But then I know from their perspective, it's like, what is this manager doing? Like, he cannot help me. He's like trying to share his way of working, which for them is like maybe it's not doesn't make sense, but it's a there's a big gap. Like this, that, and that because you work on that already, but I didn't. So how can you ask me to achieve the same level? And you're the manager, right? You should be able to do that instead of me. So this tension becomes like higher and higher. There's frustration from both sides. Me and CTO expect that like, oh, we hire a data scientist is not, I would say, the salary is quite decent. You should have been get some output from your work. But then like for them, they are, oh, wait, we are just new joiners. And at the starting point of a data science career, like, oh, what I like they know all those like at that time is like very simple pandas, like even big data is somehow at the starting stage. When we start, we don't even have Spark, but then like afterwards we definitely have that set up. But there's a they feel they need to take time to learn that, and they think is a doesn't make sense to expect them like, how can I know all the different algorithm particular works for your company. Yep, so there are a lot of uh, mismatched expectation. Then, but like we are both good people. I would say like they are very good, and I'm also like trying my best to help them. We set up regular meetings to discuss like the projects. The point is we discuss the project. Eventually becomes a lot of work for myself. It's like I when they work on a project, I actually double the work because I need to guide most step to help them shape out what's a sensible way to do that. And both end becomes more and more tiring. And one particular bad moment is eventually the senior management, the CTO steps in and complain the performance of the junior. That's really scary for a new manager actually. Like is it like he actually blaming me, unable to lead the team? And the thing is that's true. Like I gonna admit that at that time like I have no, well, I feel that I'm leading, but like in retrospective is not, I would say. And it's like sitting there just trying to assign the tasks to the team member, hope that they will finish it. When they're unable to do that, I don't know what to do. Okay, like but then the CTO said like we need to separate with the junior. But that becomes a really massive thing. And fortunately, maybe he feel that at least I'm a competent individual contributor and still willing to give me more chance to develop my management skills. So like I can still stay there, continue develop the team. Yep. So I would say episode one is a sad story, and then things move on. We did some project. Some of them are successful. Some of them are not. Some projects actually dies out after you invest 9 months into that. It happens sometimes. But anyway, like let's fast forward 2 years. I continue hiring. Now we have 5 people. Then it comes to a point that like the previous approach, like you discuss with the each individual on their projects, what is the best approach. Like sometimes it's like very constructive that I'm not pressuring, like you shouldn't pressure someone to do some particular thing, like because otherwise it's like it's like all it's just me doing that. It doesn't make sense. um but still, like when there are 5 people, like they all work on different projects, and for me can no longer spend as much effort on all those individual projects already. What makes the things more complicated is then maybe it's because I cannot follow that like close enough. Then sometimes we have diverse opinion on how a project should be done. And Sometimes the projects are delayed, and work in a path that doesn't seem like very fruitful. Then the problem is, who is accountable for that? Like from my perspective, is I give some suggestion. It seems like a reasonable suggestion, but the team doesn't want to take that. Well, so is it you are accountable for that? But no, from the whole company, it's always the manager, the leader who's accountable. You cannot delegate, or even you delegate doesn't make sense. Like people won't think in that way. So the CEO, the data science department doesn't perform, so he won't ask the individual data scientist. It's always the head that is accountable for the overall output. Um, yeah. Then one thing is at that time I start seeking external coaches to learn how to become a better leader. Yeah, and I learned that the previous way, somehow I would say at that time it's not yet a people manager. Indeed, is a project lead. I lead a lot of projects. It's not sustainable anymore. That I need to jump into a more people approach. And then after some time, I start seeing that process structure are actually blockers or enablers for the team to work. I start to working to change this process and the people structure, which I will discuss some of those insights afterwards. Was my toolbox, and I think that actually helped. We are moving to the current status. That's much better now. But then challenge never ends. So episode 3 is after the team, the team becomes bigger and bigger, 8, 9 people. Um, Actually, the engagement is very high. I would say in the company, our team is among the most engaged team. So the team members are all very happy. But then, it doesn't mean that your performance is really good. We make reasonable steps, but a team doesn't exist in isolation. You need to interact and with other teams, tech team, infrastructure team, product team. And maybe that's also because the team grows bigger, then there are more projects. And when you interact with other teams, I would say for data science team, this is particularly common to have interaction with the product team, because both of they are thinking about the product roadmap, and we are not exactly implementing, and we are researching that, and they are very often have different perspectives and priorities, and the alignment is can be very difficult. Sometimes we even ask, is true alignment ever possible, or you are just somehow compromise and keep the things move on. Yep, so this is somehow what happens in last couple of years. And and what I saw is that in most cases the problems in data science projects are not exactly in modeling, statistic, programming. All those things are, I cannot say simple, but there somehow should be an answer, and the data science community or Google is ready to support you. So usually in those cases, somehow there is a solution. And for things that counts, so besides the actual data science part, there are also other things besides the human factor, strategy and technology. But one thing particularly special about human factor that I aware is that the human factor thing is the one that is most misunderstood. And here's one insight is that this all begins with the ignorance about one major difference in the nature of data science project, such that it results in like, most data science leaders or managers, including me, trying to adopt management tools. Like management tools means agile framework, OKR, Kanban, Scrum, all those things. We try to adapt those management tools, hope that the team's performance will go up. But we don't aware that there is some incorrect or ignorance of underlying assumptions and purpose, which making all of these things are not working. So what's this difference? Is AUC factor. I think like everyone here know what is AUC in data science, the area and the curve. But here is a new meaning for that. Is that data science projects are intrinsically high in ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity. It's so high that many management ideas won't work well. Um, so what I mean by ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity is I give an example. In typical software development, so the tech side, usually when there is a problem, there's a bug, you know it's either from algorithm or there's a issue in implementation, so logical flaw or implementation flaw. So you have a two-dimension uh, solution space to debug. But in machine learning or data science, so first is algorithm. It's somehow not a false and true situation anymore. It can be, it's not working, so it's incorrect. But it's also possible that it's not good enough because now it's about prediction quality. It's no right or wrong. It's a better or worse. So this is first one. Then like implementation issues still exist. But on top of that, there you need to have a model that works. Model means like a statistical model, a machine learning model that have to fit your problem, which is like a very often not very obvious. When you need a predictor, how would you know whether linear regression, logistic regression, or neural network, different kinds of like you may choose a wrong model. So this is one thing. And even if you choose the right model, okay, let's say assuming that because you won't know whether you are at the right model. But besides that, the data also have to work because on one end there may be problems in data, and on another end is also the data you have may not have the information you need to do your prediction. Therefore, there are two more dimension, and then this solution space, which means that you search for the correct solution, is a debugging space. It becomes exponentially harder. Then that is why I can say it's a really high AUC. Um, Put it in another way, like a data science project are more like research rather than like a software implementation. And it's a rather new to the business world because in typically what is a research team like in medical company like medicine, they have a research team that's really big and can spend years on that. And then when they have a patent, then it earns $1 billion. So it's either a big team or a long time span, like for research, or like in the university, they have a research, but usually the goal is more flexible. As long as you derive some new ideas that have academic value, that is fine. Like it's not like we are going to improve the product in this and that way. So it's different. But in data science team, especially in startups, usually the team is small, you have tight timeline. This is a rather new to the industry, and so far I would say people are not having a silver bullet. What is the right way to work with that? Okay, yep. So let I will continue with AUC topic. So first is I gonna admit that there's a the original idea of AUC is not from me, but from Andy Grove in his book High Output Management. There's a chapter on most of control. So how it should work with different kind of projects or work, simply say. And his term is like CUA, like the same characters, but by that time they don't have a they are not working with data science, so don't have this AUC curve. So but like I try to make it more data science specific, so call it AUC. And in his book there's a one chart, this one I show in the slides, is how AUC factor, like so how uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity affect what kind of control works. And he have another dimension as the motivation. So first is when things are certain, which means low AUC factor, which means you can have very specific criteria, specific goals, or clear steps. If in case if it works, like you take a self-interest motivation, then usually this works in free markets, because when AUC is low, means that you can have very clear specification requirement that is a perfect for free market. And if the transaction cost is high, usually it moves to group interest, and that like contractual obligation, what the traditional business organization still works, because you can say clearly who was on which, how, list the procedures, process, and give very clear guidance on how things should work. But when uncertainty goes up, like in data science projects, he said because you cannot define those specification anymore, the it's so ambiguous that you need to search for the solution together with the one who work in, or like you rely on them. Therefore free market or contractual application doesn't work. And actually he even said, in this case self-interest, like there's an agency problem. If you have a very ambiguous problem, you ask someone to solve that, and you cannot monitor them because the high AUC factor, then he said nothing work. You don't dream about that. And if we have a group, then he said cultural values will work. It's the only solution. And this is giving me a big insight when I in my episode 2, like leading the data science project. So it means that because data science project is high AUC, we need to think about how to use cultural values to guide our work. But then, what is cultural values? Art? No. Is there's a definition from Merriam-Webster dictionary that culture is the set of shared attributes, values, goals, and practices that characterize an institute or organization. Perfectly dictionary definition. Um, what's different from what we previously has is it emphasized that is at these values, goals, or practices are not process. So is they are not rules, but they are more a judgment. So it means that the team, every member know what's the preferred way of doing things. What usually is value. So you have multiple values. Sometimes they have conflicts, but as a member sharing the culture, what is right, what is wrong, what is more desirable. Then you can make the decision. This is the foundation of autonomous decision, actually. And yeah, then it makes total sense because when you with high AUC projects, you cannot have the control. You cannot define the process, or if you define the process, there are so many cases that the situation that doesn't you doesn't foresee when you define the process, and then there are always exceptions, and eventually it won't work as previously in my experience. And therefore, like culture, if people basically know what's right, what's preferable, then they can together like make it happen. Yep. Then I somehow group the four different areas of culture into this triangle. Um, yeah, because I've somehow in practice, attitudes and values are somehow similar in our purpose. I don't mean like they are the same thing, but like in terms of shipping a data science team is quite similar. Then there are practices and there are goals. So I would try to talk about that in these three different areas. And one again, this is started from few slides back that I say like what counts for this presentation is to share my experience. So I don't this is not very typical in a presentation that you quote other people's book, but as my main purpose is to help all of us to become a better manager. So as long as I feel it's useful, I try to quote the source. And yeah, I don't pretend that to be my own original idea, because they aren't, because I actually borrow idea from different books and people to make it works. As long as it works, then I think it's good to share that with you all. So first is attitudes and values. um, because you need the team to be autonomous, because the opposite of autonomous is somehow like microcontrol, which we already know is not working. So you need to focusing on autonomous, and therefore people's drive, the willingness to work on the projects becomes very important. And Daniel Pink give a very good suggestion on this, is I focus on autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And we need to build a at the same time we need to build an environment such that people are feeling safe to work together. Like it's otherwise like self-interest will overtake like the group interest. um so this is how I build the team, that people are willing to help each other. We make it explicit that we welcome silly questions. Like even you work for 2 years, if you ask a question that like even a new joiner should know, but we won't blame you, because everyone somehow will forget some of the things they work on. And what happened if you blame them is like they keep it under the table, don't ask people, that is all, it won't goes away, right? Yep. So we encourage people to ask and never shame or make people feel bad about asking silly question. So this is important. um on top of that is this culture also, these values and attitudes also shaped your team's character. And for me, I choose intellectual and helpful, such that like the team feel that, oh, we are all intellectual people, we're willing to help each other, then they goes well together. um, but I definitely understand there are different kind of team character and can thrive in different kinds of company. Maybe Netflix or maybe Twitter, they need a different kind of values. It's totally possible, as long as like it help people to feel safe, I would say. So this is one take on the attitude and values. Yep. The second corner of the triangle is practices. Practices actually means what you actually do, trying to solve your problems. And in data science, this also comes up during our journey. We eventually end up with two big principles. First is the RAP principles from the book Decisive. Um, this actually we build this into our checklist of when we need to start a project. So, what are the alternative options? Like help us to think whether whether a because there are always bias when you start a project. You feel that everyone feel their project is important, especially after you start working on that. But when you we put it in a checklist, so what are your options? Please state it explicitly. And then what are your assumptions on this project? So this or that has to be worked in order for this project to make sense. Or if I implement that, it also depends on some other parts that was well, and maybe even the external world should be like this, otherwise it won't work. Then people have a point to discuss whether these assumptions are good enough or there is disagreement starting from the assumptions. And then we especially this is the third one is important when continuing a project. We try to ask the third person, if you are putting into this project, will you continue working on that? This is tricky. like Usually the third person easier to arrive in a decision. So, oh, this doesn't make sense, I won't want to pick it up. But we take this as a red light, um, to put it into serious discussion. But there are also cases that after back and forth discussion, we still agree that we may give them some more time on that. And also the final thing is prepared to be wrong. I think this is quite straightforward. And then another more, to me, is even more important framework is from the Lean Startup, from Eric Rice. um, a lot of data science team use OKR or Agile, but actually, as far as I study them, they all have different particular purpose, which is usually not a problem for data science team, or at least not the major blocker for data science team. For data science team, as I just mentioned, is high AUC. This is the whole big problem. And the lean startup method is trying to address this uncertainty. Actually, what Eric tried to solve is to narrow down the uncertainty in a systematical way. He, for every a project or task he want to do, is the purpose is to validate some learning. Are we have a valid assumption to waiting to be validated or not? There's a have a this kind of step helps the team to be much more clear and explicit in the things they are working on. So this is again very important. That is the practice that we take into our team. The last corner is about goals, as defined in the culture. Um, yeah. So goals is there are two aspect that I with my concern. First is about, do the team align with the goals? They agree on what to work on. Most company and most teams usually try to align on the what. So what we want to build. Some of them also try to align on how. What is the way that we we build this and build that. But in start with why. Simon Sinek, one of my favorite authors, said for this create high creative industry, the why is the core fundamental driver for people alignment. Um, yeah, and I totally agree on that. Is like we always spend time whenever we have a project that we need to understand what is the benefit to company industry, um, because when you agree on the why, then people can have the chance to discuss how and what. And when there are, like, again, when there are uncertainty, they know how to make the change, even like a not necessarily to involve the higher management, because they already know why this project is there. Can they choose an alternative implementation or model, or like the way to say improve the client value, full transparency, something like that. So this is important. Then the next one is decisions that is like, so this happens more with external stakeholders. Like external means like other departments, not our clients. Um, is that very often teams can align on company vision or even missions, but still they make very different decisions. Product teams say, "Oh, let's build things quick, test it, then we can see whether it works or not." Data science team said, you need to have a scientific approach. You need to verify that if your experiment is not well defined, that like you shouldn't do that. All these like difference actually rooted from different principles, and therefore like these decisions that is actually not a book, but a website from a product guy called Martin, really good. um, he discussed this. He proposed this decision stack idea that in order to align the decisions, the teams shall actually align on the principles. What is principle means here is like principle actually just simply means what's the priority when you need to do trade-offs. So for example, when uh, there's an option, more profits versus better client value, do we have a principle to guide that, or a trade-off between time and robustness or something like that? So if teams can arrive at a alignment in principles as much as it can, then the conflicts between teams will be much lower. Like, gotta admit that there's still, like, even for me, there's no 100% alignment on principles. It's really difficult. But the more you do, like the more principles that you can align, the less friction is there. It's always true, because what you cannot align, eventually you take that to a discussion in a meeting. You still need to discuss that, right? Just that with principles, then like you already know the other party make the decision with the same idea behind, so that will be easier for all of us. Yep. The so that's the so for the learning in last few years. And now the team is that is the current status is it happily life hereafter? Yeah, I would say things are smooth, good engagement, but indeed I would still say the story just begins, because on one end the business world is keep changing, the teams is then keep growing. Sometimes we still couldn't agree with the when business change, then there are more new ideas from other teams, and sometimes you won't agree that decision you think is a waste of data science resources. Sometimes happen. And on another end is inside the team, like uh, as it grows bigger and bigger, you also have less and less personal touch with each member. That creates a more potential problem, because difficult to understand like the preference of each one. Then it comes back to my initial idea why I want to conduct this talk is like we need more managers. I think is the whole data science industry actually need more good data science manager that understand why the typical management frameworks not work for data science and what is the alternative. Then we can reason from this fundamental difference. Then you can address and help data scientists to work much better. Yep, so this is like close to the end of presentation. Yep, so just one tip for businesses, what I just mentioned is most people even like because they are successful in other department. The OKR is very successful in product team. The agile framework is very successful in tech team. Very often they think that is universal. Why not for data science? But like as I just discussed, it's no. Uh, like after a lot of painful experiment, I would say it's no. And there was very important to invest into management methodology to think through that. This invest means time and people, but not like exactly money. And when the data science initiatives are not moving, yep. So final like if there's one sentence I like for you all to take away, I would say is like data science actually, besides the infrastructure and knowledge, it needs the right culture to flourish to make the impact to the company. Yep. Then that's all of my slides. Now I'm reading the questions actually. Um, so like I would just read out the questions and then answer that, or like any other suggestion. Would it? You are
Sorry,
muted.
I was on mute. Yes, I think that should be good. I'll we can probably pick questions from here. So, okay, that's an interesting question. What's your advice for tech founders who are not data scientists, but maybe CTOs and all who are looking to build in-house AI projects or in-house AI teams?
Yeah. Actually, I answered this question a couple of times. I would say like so nowadays, this is like I give like advice to both founders as well as like data scientists. Nowadays, the data science industry becomes more and more diverse, or like everyone have different specialty. Some is like good at machine learning, some good at analytics, some are good at statistics. No one well, back in those days, I'm the so-called full stack data scientist, but like now there's a very few that people know is impossible. But like for the first data scientist, I would say it's much better to have a generalist. You don't need to be, because usually at the starting stage, there are more lower hanging fruit that you want to achieve rather than you want to spend years 3 years to create some game changer. Like in that particular case, probably you need well funded and very clear idea. Like so, that's a very AI driven startup. So it's a different from uh, normal startups. Normal startups, you want machine learning to help your existing business model, like to do something better and automate. Then you need someone with uh, better communication and product sense rather than, I would say most people have somehow enough like data science skill to start working on some projects, but like in case if they don't have a good product or communication sense, this the gap makes that is a waste of investment usually, like so that doesn't work.
Yeah, but as in, so for example, one thing that I have seen a lot of times when I interact with founders is that um, especially there could be especially in startups, there could be founders aiming to go for moonshot projects which are very ambitious, and they want to hire that kick-ass talent who can come and get things done for them. So do you think that strategy works well, or what's a good starting way to go about building teams and AI projects when it comes, because people is very important part of the entire equation.
So in those cases, like the idea itself is like, sorry, I need to close the
Yeah.
door.
Sure.
Sorry.
So I see questions from various community members. It's good we are picking them up. Um, Kunal, if you're there, you've asked a question on how to develop interest. If you can probably elaborate, you're asking this from the perspective of manager or a non-tech guy. That will be helpful. Yeah. Meanwhile, we can circle back since Jack is back. Jack is back. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Like this happens always when you work from home.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So what I just mentioned is like there are some kind of startup that rooted in a very like I would say revolutionary AI concept. For example, Midjourney, like this like AI created like like images. For these kinds of startup is almost impossible to be funded by non data scientist founders. Like you cannot
yeah,
simply think, ah, there may exist a solution for something. Um, there's a this is also useful for like talking to product team. Usually there are two kinds of data science project. One is automating what people can do. Like I always ask the product team, imagine that I give you 1,000 people. Is this a problem that you can solve? If yes, then more likely data science can automate that like by data. On another end, there are another kind of project like Magic. like, well, like can we predict the stock market, for example? Like if I give you 1,000 people, you still cannot do that, and then at least you know there are very low chance that AI will success, like because maybe there doesn't exist a solution. But sometimes for people who work particularly in the AI industries with the most advanced thing, so in Google, for example, then this is like a from another route. Is a starting from knowledge. They don't have a product in mind, like so. It's like from both ends. Like one end is from product. What is the thing you want to build? Another end is what is possible with this advancement in AI? I create something. The risk is that there is no market. Like it's possible, right? When that is what people said. When you start with
yeah,
technology, then sometimes you end up with a product with no market, and that takes some like a different route of a startup, I would say.
yeah, yeah. Okay, got it. On these lines, on the ambiguity lines, there is one more question. So, but this is slightly different. It's from Bella, who asks, in certain projects, there may be no clear path for success, especially in AI research and all. So, how do you ensure a clear path, as mentioned by you in the culture code? So, in the slide where you talked about culture code, there was a mention of this. Yeah,
Exactly. And actually, there's a basic part of like a research. A lot of research actually fail, um, even in a business context. Like, for example, we know our clients want to estimate the lifetime value, like all the commerce, so company want to estimate that. Is there exist a way to estimate that? May or may not, and no one like no one know how to do that. Um, then what we do is like to decompose the why. So why you want lifetime value? So actually, what we want is to make better decisions. You don't exactly need the value itself. The value itself is for as an information for making decision. Then like usually what I discuss with the product team is what are like so let them know the ultimate goal may not be achievable. Actually, most people understand that. Like when they propose that, they know It's
Yeah.
just a wish, but like what actually create the values for them, and what, and then this is like the responsibility of data scientist or like data science leader to somehow prioritize, like given your knowledge in the domain and data science, is it feasible and how difficult it is. um, Typically there are some easier thing, like your team has experience, or the industry have some solution, then usually the higher certainty among all these like high uncertainty thing. And there also remains some very, actually the most exciting part is like those high uncertainty projects. You feel that, oh, that will be, if we can build that, we will be the leader in the industry. But then like I would say we usually rational enough to only allocate very little resources on that, unless someone get a, usually you this like do research in the industry, like is there some research paper related, or even we sometimes discuss with some professors in university, but like I try to limit the input because like that's actually not very fruitful usually. um yeah, then therefore like this clear path for success is like to prioritize according to certainty, like a certainty, and how close is to the value. That is
Hmm.
like more more like a product manager indeed here.
Yeah. Okay. But it's like I'm just wondering because in research projects, what I have also seen many times is that over a given period of time, it gets more complicated as well as in when you're trying to drive some result and it's not coming out. So is there, have you been in a scenario like that, and is there anything that helped you manage your people better in that scenarios?
Can you repeat? Sorry.
So in research work, a lot of times it is possible that the team is working to drive something and it's maybe taking time to achieve towards the end goal. And often at times, the people management may become complicated in such scenarios where people are driven, but maybe for how much time? Maybe for 1 year, 2 year, it's still stuck. So how do you, have you been in a scenario, and in such case, how do you address it?
Exactly. Like so falling in love with a project is like, or your research is typically like, even me myself happened a few times. Like you feel, give me one more week, no, give me one more month, then like, we are there. But like
Yeah.
eventually it's not. Um, Therefore, we explicitly set up a checklist, like to review that every month, and then like 2 months, and then 3 months, um, to have a team to do some fact checking. So, what is a realistic expectation for that? So the one who walk in should give a summary of like their research as good as possible, and then like judged by third person, like the management team, that is it, like even like sometimes it's, there may be a chance, but given the uncertainty there should be higher priority, like other tasks goes in, that unwillingly but still shelve this like existing research, because like I would say this is a somehow difficult decision for most data scientists. Like you feel your research is like somehow put in the shelf. But I would say like success of the company is like the foundation that the data science team can still get their work. And yeah, so there's just like
Yeah.
the way to give a control on this, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for answering that. There is one question from Alan, which is an interesting one. It's like, this, does a data scientist manager need to be an expert data scientist too? Because a lot of EMs, they may not be, the best software developer, but they end up becoming a good engineering manager.
Actually, I don't think a data science manager need to be expert data scientist. Um, but that's actually like I didn't highlight that, but that's also one of the reason why I have this kind of presentation is that in order for other managers to move to be a data science manager, the critical thing is not to work on data science project because they won't, but the critical thing is to understand what's the difference between data science project and engineering projects. Like this uncertainty, how would you handle it? Like I can imagine actually they actually brings additional value. Like a product managers move into data science, um, give valuable insight about like the product thinking, but they must know what's particular special for data science project.
Hmm.
Then the remaining thing, the technical part, is more about communication skill, which I assume most managers should have.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Thanks. Yeah. I think I would. I agree with you on that, and I can understand where you're coming from. There is one question from Kunal. He's asking how to develop interest in a data science in data science for a non-tech guy. Or yeah.
Can you clarify that? Like, do you mean like to make a non-tech guy to learn data science or interested in our project?
Yes, I when you were attending your child, I was just trying to seek a clarification on this. Maybe I mean we can pick one perspective and try to answer it here. So let's say I am a data science manager and I want my business counterparts to get interest in. Uh, okay, Kunal has just clarified. He says how to learn data science. I think. Um, okay, how do you encourage? Okay, maybe let's say you are a data science person in your team and you want to encourage your management or business counterparts to start learning AI because the team should become data literate over a given period of time. So how do you address that? Is that something that you've tried, and any things that you have learned that has worked well?
So honestly, I would say like you cannot force people to learn something, right? It's all about their motivation. In our company, I also like hold some data science sparring session, which welcome like all the people from tech or business side to join. Um, so like he also further clarification, like
Hmm.
so it's more
Okay.
about communication. I would say like
Hmm.
because the stakeholders don't understand like data science, and therefore like they they create a lot of problems. Like even like as close as tech and data and product team, they sometimes don't understand. Um, to for them to learn, I would say is like we try to um, simplify things a lot. Um, give the so you put yourself in their shoes. Like so, what's important for a product team? Actually, like just less than a month ago, the data science team, like the one I have a full day summit with the product team just to communicate how each of us are like thinking about projects and why. Like it's not on any particular project, but like the ways of thinking. Then we find that it's so different, and I won't say like we are happily married after, but like but definitely like they are aware that oh it's all rooted from like you need to know the truth, and then for us it's oh it's all about like you just want to deliver value quicker, like all out of like goodwill, then create the empathic communication. So I would say empathetic is like more important than they actually understand data science. They know what like we know, and they know what is each other's difficulties and consideration. And then usually with this empathetic like a communication, you trust that they are not trying to picking up on you because they they don't like you, but like they have their concern that is also reasonable. um, then they don't need to understand like what's happening inside the data science,
The
the
nitty-gritties, yeah.
machine learning thing, and it's actually quite difficult, I would say.
Yes, it is. Um, yeah, I can understand. And I think typically one of the things that we have seen when we work with companies who want to achieve this is, maybe you can share your thoughts on it, is that you can try to communicate the basics first and educate on the applications, as you mentioned, rather than taking them on making them an expert in, building models or the mathematics side of things, of course. So
True. And actually on top of that is like one thing we are trying to do is like so there are like different parts of data science, so models and programming, but like the whole industry I would say is like somehow moving towards lower low or light coding. Like there are lots of like even Google platform allows you to create models from just drag and drop, something like that, which is like a opportunity and actually like a trend to empower other non-technical people to work on that. Then is about for us actually is the plan for coming year to structure the whole product such that the data scientist is responsible for setting up the metrics, so how to create a valid experiment. Then you can actually open up like the modeling part to other people. They can keep trying and the machine will approve it or like remove or destroy it if it's invalid. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. There is one thing that there's one interesting thing that it's something that even we have been trying to solve at AI Planet. So it's when we started, our idea was that, okay, Chanukya was working as a data. Chanukya is the founder of DeFi and AI Planet. So he was working as a data scientist. He saw a lot of projects being broken. I see a very popular comment saying 85% of projects fail according to Gartner, which is, I think you would relate to it, which is quite true. I mean, it's very, it's I mean, when we interact with leaders, it's very common to see that, okay, they are working for years, but there's no model going to production. It's not very common in data science. But so one thing that we thought is, let's solve some of the meaningful problems, and maybe building communities a way to go about it. So first we did that by education, by providing these sessions. Second, we have also built a marketplace on the lines of what you're mentioning, like anyone can come use the models through endpoint APIs, and it should be easy for them to apply. But yeah, I totally relate to the fact when you say that application of AI will become over, especially in the simpler use cases, it will just get easier and more democratized over with time. More and more people will be able to address it. But yeah, I think we are towards the end of the questions. And it was quite a wonderful conversation. I think there were certain questions which were quite complicated, but you answered them very patiently. So thanks a lot for that, and thanks a lot for this elaborate presentation as well. It was a real pleasure hosting you. He has also mentioned, for folks who are watching us, he has mentioned his website, so you must go and check it out. You can follow him on LinkedIn also. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mudit, and thank you like for who all attend this live session. So I have the email on the presentation. Like in case if you have other questions, feel free to drop me a message. I always I just like to discuss with other data science people.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. We'll see you all soon. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy
Bye.
learning. Happy weekend. Bye.
Bye.